ReefDudes is sponsored by Brightwell Aquatics and Bulk Reef Supply.
Today we're going to do an update on the Waterbox 7225. What's going on, guys? Devin from ReefDudes. Now, I've been getting asked almost daily for the past few weeks to do an update on the Waterbox. I know it's been a little while, and the tank is about 6 months old now, and it's really starting to finally settle into its groove. I know with any new tank, it always takes a little while for things to kind of settle in, those bacteria colonies to establish, and for your tank to really start to thrive. And I feel like I'm finally at that point. So let's take a look at the tank. Now, the tank itself is a Waterbox 7225, that's actually the dimensions of it. So it's 6 feet long by 25 wide and 24 tall. Now for lighting, I do have the Ecotech Radion XR15 Pros. I went with the Pros because I like that bit of a whiter, crisp color that you get out of it. And I also went with the XR15s because I appreciate that extra bit of spread you can get by spacing out the pucks a bit more. Now, unless you have like a 30-inch deep tank, I kind of think 15s are definitely the way to go. Now, I did go the Peninsula because I love the fact that you can have basically 2 tanks in one. Peninsulas are great room dividers, and they give it a really cool look to the tank. Now, I'm not normally a fan of having a frag rack in the tank. That guy is only in there temporarily until I get my frag tank set up, kind of running out of space, so you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. Now, I'm really happy with the awesome clarity I'm getting inside the tank right now. Like, the camera doesn't quite pick it up, but crystal clear all the way back over 6 feet of water. And that's thanks to a blend of like the Clarity filter roller and ozone on the tank. Now, I'm a big fan of having a mixed reef. So one kind of thing that I did is flow-wise, at the far end we have 2 MP60s, and that's providing all the flow for the entire tank. Now, I didn't want pumps anywhere else in the tank, so I got some pretty heavy duty ones to kind of really push that flow across it. And also, if we look up on the right hand side, you can kind of see where the aquascape is. It starts higher, then it goes down a bit, then it goes a little bit lower, it kind of goes throughout the tank. So the kind of middle to higher up tank is all for the acropora space. Since they like that light, they like the higher flow, they're predominantly on the right hand side of the tank. We still do have some scattered throughout the tank, but mainly in the kind of the first half of the tank. Now, with that, also in the middle is all the torches. Now, the torches, for me at least, is always the first thing that catches my attention in the tank. Just such beautiful flowing movement. I do love these guys. Except the one exception is the one guy in the middle here. He might get moved out because he has some crazy long tentacles and he's starting to tickle some of the other acros around there. So I think he's going to be migrated to the frag tank once I get that one set up in a few more weeks. Now, as I stare at the tank, I've also realized I go into like little kind of coral garden areas, which is kind of cool. Like all the torches are grouped together. Come over here, we got kind of like all the acans on this little bluff area together. Same thing with the rock flowers, all the rock flowers on their own little island down there. Now, I'm actually really happy that none of the rock flowers have moved. I did originally put them into a rock that was fairly holy from day one. Made sure each one had its own little hole to put its foot into, and that seemed to work very well as none of them have actually moved. Now, if you look at the little acan island, actually, there's a couple that are on the sand bed. There's some of the rasses have been sleeping in between them, so them or the snails have been kind of pushing them off. So I've had to fix those. One of these days I'm actually gonna have to glue them down. But overall, I'm really liking how the tank's coming together. All the corals, everything's starting to encrust and overgrow on top of the rock, which is an awesome sign to see. And kind of the pink hat encrusting, little berry, whatever it's called, is encrusting. All these guys seem to be growing really well. Now, I don't know if this is related, but I have been trying out the KZ Coral Booster and the Flatworm Exit or Flatworm Stop, whatever it is. Now, the 2 KZ ones. Now, I've also been dosing them only at a 50% dose. I'm doing half of what it recommends, so I think I'm doing 4 mil of the Flatworm and 2 mil of the Coral Booster. Now, I don't know how much of a difference it's making, the jury's still out, but supposedly it does make your corals encrust more and do all that other stuff, so we'll see. Now, on the flip side, the tank's also about 6 months old now, so it's kind of at that point where it's finally starting to settle into its groove. The bacteria, all the colonies and stuff are starting to establish themselves, and the tank's really just settling in. So it could be that, could be the additives helping out again, it's hard to say. Now, one other little interesting tidbit is there's a little Maleficent Acro, I think it was called, and I actually had it right in the middle of this little bluff area, that little shelf plate. But apparently there's way too much flow because a couple of the branches that were poking up were getting blasted their flesh off from the MP60. So a little too direct for it. So I actually moved it over a couple inches, and I added in a Jason Fox Party Crasher Cephastria. Now the Cephastria should be a little hardier, should be able to handle that flow, and so I'm hoping that will encrust across and give me a nice pop of color on that shelf. Now the Elegance Coral is an absolute beast. This guy is probably about 10 to 12 inches tall. It fills up that whole entire corner. So it's probably actually the only spot I could put him in the tank, but it's really cool to see how big it actually gets. And the crazy thing is it goes into a skeleton like the size of my hand at the bottom at night. So I definitely do have corals everywhere and scattered throughout the tank. I think I'm actually going to thin it out a little bit and get myself a little more sand bed space back once I get the frag tank and have room for stuff. Right now it's mainly covered in zoas and other things, so I think I'll put the favorites at bases of rock and let them slowly grow up, while the acros slowly go down. Then the rest will kind of free it up for just a little bit of negative space in the tank. Fish-wise, everyone has been getting along very well. I do have a pretty good-sized tang gang in here. We have the purple tang, 3 yellow tangs, a hippo tang, and a red sea sailfin tang. Aside from that, we got a few cool rasses, a couple anthias, got a little royal gamma over there, got our good old chromis, azure damsel, got the coral beauty, a couple Bangai cardinals, and a few other rasses. There's also the flame hawkeyes who crack me up. They're always big eye, boogly eyes staring at you. They're always curious. Half the time they're sitting on like my glass cleaner random places. One of my other favorites is the blue spot jawfish. This guy has lots of cool character. He moved his home. He used to be right in front of the gaunis. Now he moved over to this side of the tank, which is still good. He's still up front and center, which is awesome. So as long as I can see him, I'm pretty happy. Now this back corner often gets a little overlooked, so I'm starting to give it a little more attention lately. This is mainly kind of like the Euphilia. We got some frog spawns, some bicolored hammers, orange setosa, branching Cyphastria, so a couple different things over here. I also did add a couple of my bright orangey yellow citrus mushrooms, so I did take 2 of them out, so it'll look pretty cool and add a nice contrast once I cover that rock over here. The bounces have gotten crazy big. These are the 2 kryptonite bounces, and these guys have really just exploded the last little while. It's huge how much they're spreading out. Wouldn't surprise me if I had to get a couple split soon, which would be pretty awesome. The forest fire digi was dying off a little bit at the base, not sure why, but all the tips seem healthy and growing. Kind of looks like it might be starting to grow back down a bit, so we'll see what happens with that guy. But aside from that, the only one of the little casual I had was the haystack deep water, and I think that guy bit the dust on me, but aside from that, everything in the tank seems pretty happy. This guy is a kind of a greeny torch with yellowy tips, pretty cool. This one actually was captive spawned in captivity at Reef Wholesale, so pretty cool about that. Got one of their babies in here and it's growing and doing quite well. So absolutely love the torch garden, minus the one purple guy who's really cool, but he's gonna get taken out just so he stops stinging all my acros. Come down below it, we got the gauni gardens. Absolutely love my gaunis. They're growing very well and nice, crisp, and colorful. That guy on the right has some crazy long polyps. And look a little left, we got the big orange plate coral. This guy keeps walking on those zoas, so once I clear a little more sand bed space out, he'll have lots of space to roam around. And if you come down a little lower, we of course got the gorgeous new sump. Still gotta do a little bit of cleanup down here. I want to like straighten all the dosing tubes, get everything lined up so it's nice clean lines everywhere. I think it'll look really good. Next over, of course, have the little control panel side. And this we got the 4-pack of Versas. First one's running the calcium reactor. Next one is for wastewater for automatic water changes. Next 2 are dosing. And one of them is dosing the KZ flatworm exit. And the other one is the coral booster. So I've been trying those 2 out at about 50% dosage. So jury's still out on how much of a difference it makes, but we'll see. I think my next 2 projects, 1, get the new calcium reactor installed, and 2, I want to do some kind of lighting inside the stand so I can actually see when I'm videoing or when I'm working on it. So we'll order up some parts for that and get that installed in the next week or 2. Overall, the tank has been doing amazing and I'm thrilled how things are coming along. It's about 6 months now since things got wet, finally got all the coral rock, everything started to go into it. The first few months took a little bit. Some of the acros weren't quite as happy. But you know, I figured the last month or two is when things really started to settle in. The tank's matured enough that things are really starting to flourish. So there you go, guys, about 6 months update on the Waterbox 7225. If you got any questions, let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit that like button. If you're new, make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you guys on the next update.